This unit discusses the project life cycle. This is covered in Chapter 2 of the PMBOK Guide. This topic is also discussed in the Principles of Project Management cited. This is a small book published by PMI, which is a compendium of white papers contributed by PMI members over a number of years, and is one of the references for exam questions cited on PMI's national website. You don't necessarily have to get a copy, but it has some interesting material in it. This is PMI's definition of a project life cycle. Note that it is not a requirement that the phases be sequential. The life cycle is typically documented in a methodology which contains processes, forms, etc. to guide project planning and execution. Such methodologies incorporate the experience of the organization in doing projects. The process groups are initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. They reoccur in each project phase. So the process groups are not the project life cycle. PMI calls them the project management life cycle. The project life cycle serves to define the beginning and end of a project. The detail of a particular project life cycle is primarily a function of the product of the project. This slide shows the level of effort, staffing, and cost expenditure in the various life cycle phases. Most of the cost will occur in the phase that actually creates the product. Along the bottom axis of this chart are listed the main product of each phase of the project. Though this is a little deceptive, the picture will only look exactly like this for a single phase project. This will become clear as we define additional processes. For example, the project charter is an output of initiating and can therefore theoretically occur at the beginning of each phase. At the end of each phase, we review the project so far to determine if the project should go on. This provides a management control point enabling what is called executive governance of the project. Consideration is given to revised estimates, benefits expected, recent strategic priorities, etc. In other words, does the project still make sense? If a project no longer does make sense, the right thing to do is stop. Some deliverables correspond to the project management process, e.g. project plans, progress reports, whereas others are the end products or components of the end products for which the project was conceived. The type of technical work required in each project depends on what kind of product the project is creating. This is why the project life cycle is a function of the product. Project life cycles can be defined in relation to each other in any way which fits the need of the particular project. For example, if we are creating a brand new product, such as an innovative new technology product, the product may evolve as the project proceeds, as requirements and design evolve. Such projects often require iterative work to refine designs and correct false starts and so on. There is nothing in the PMI standard which requires what is known as waterfall methodology, where there is only one accepted sequence of events. When a phase starts before the prior phase ends, it is known as fast tracking. This approach is frequently used to accelerate the timeline for a project at the expense of possible rework if assumptions used to proceed turn out to be wrong. Closing wraps up the phase which is coming to an end and approves the product as of that point. The next step is to initiate the next phase, and this is done in initiating. At that point, we do the review of whether it makes sense to continue with the project and if it does, we approve the beginning of the next phase. This process, which is actually two processes, close project or phase followed by develop project charter, can all occur in a combined meeting and frequently is done this way. With each phase, we want management signatures approving continuing the next phase, and these signatures are part of the project charter document. For this reason, we are performing at least part of develop project charter at the beginning of each phase. If there has been a major change to the project since the original charter was produced, it may be advisable to reissue the updated project charter to project stakeholders for purposes of keeping them informed. This is a decision that management can make as part of the decision to proceed. Since by definition all projects create something new, there is always risk associated with projects. You are more uncertain of the project outcome earlier in the project, as shown in the solid red line. As the project progresses, the level of uncertainty about the project outcome decreases, and so does risk. However, because the cost of changes is rising, stakeholder ability to influence the project is also decreasing, as it will cost more and more to make any requested changes. We know also that early in the project not much money has been spent and not much effort has been expended. Therefore, the cost of making a change is less than it will be later in the project when more rework will be required. This slide compares product lifecycle to project lifecycle. The names of the lifecycle phases may be different in different application areas or businesses. For example, project conception, feasibility, planning. Since projects are temporary, there is a closing phase for projects. At closing, the product is usually turned over to operations. Products are frequently revised or improved, but eventually become obsolete and are no longer needed. At that time, there is a disposal phase in the product life cycle to get rid of the obsolete product. In some products, disposal can be a major effort. Think of a nuclear power plant when it closes down and must be decommissioned. The comment is added that at the time of disposal, it is now possible to calculate the actual total cost of ownership. In projects, we work with both product scope and project scope. One of the basic requirements is that we ensure that the project scope always corresponds to the product scope. Any change to the product scope must, of necessity, change project scope. Keeping these two in sync is one of the functions of project integration management.